Today's head-on is George Garrison counted them. The subhead-on says there were 23 bears in the drove, a mystery. This article originally came from Barley Run, Pennsylvania on October 20th. It says, 12 hunters fired at the bear, and it's hard to tell who hit it, but it was hit. There was only one bullet in it, but the bear was dead. Such was the news that Bert Schilling brought in from South Creek, Lycoming County. That doesn't seem like much of a bag for 12 hunters to make out a drove of 23 bears, continued Mr. Schilling. But that is all they killed, all of the bears. There was a dog killed, I believe. Ed Axtell's dog Juno was killed. He got mixed up with 3 of the bears, and Sid Moe tried to kill all 3 of the bears with one shot. He missed them and killed the dog. The way it all came about was this. Squire Nahart came over to Ed Axtell's one morning. Ed, says he, somebody stole 10 of my sheep. Somebody ain't done nothing of the sort, says Ed. Why ain't they, says the squire. 'Cause it's bears that stole your sheep, says Ed. That's the reason somebody ain't done it. That don't help me out, says the squire. No, says Ed, but it helps me out considerable. I've been 'specting there are bears prowling around here, and now I know it. I've been waiting to be sure of it before I went out after 'em, and now I'm going. So Ed sent word around among the boys, and Charlie Williamson, Sid Moe, George Wilson, Bill Trumper, Harv Williamson, Rube Nahart, and Charlie Root joined him to go on the hunt. Even Ed, old bear hunter that he is, had no idea that he was going to run into bear quite as strong as they did, or maybe he'd have laid things out different. The 9 hunters started up the wild valley of South Creek. They had gone about 2 miles when they met George Garrison coming down the creek as if he was running on a bet and had to beat the cars to win. He was bareheaded and looked scared. When he saw the small army of bear hunters advancing, he stopped in his tracks, swung his arms, and hollered glory. George Garrison's word goes further among the South Creek people than any other man's in the whole district, so when he gave his reasons for being so much excited, the hunters quit wondering and saw a heap of fun ahead of them. You've got along here just in time, says George Garrison. The woods up the creek are so full of bear that the bears are moving north to get more room. I was coming down the creek when I saw a bear coming. I got behind a tree. I peeked out and saw that following the bear close was another one, and behind that one another one, and behind that one. Well, the fact of the matter is that I saw a whole string of bears coming up the creek. I stood there and counted 23 big ones past a given point. There was more coming, but my nerves couldn't stand it to count any further, and so I cut and run. How many more than 23 there were, I can't say, but they're marching along. They ain't more than a mile up the creek. Come on and gobble 'em. This was great news. The party of hunters spread out on each side of the creek. Harv Williamson and Rube Nahart went clambering up a steep knoll on the lower side. When they reached the top, they scared 3 bears out of the brush. Thunder, says Rube, these make 26. Then he and Harv both fired. The bears kept on going. A bunch of fur and a dab or 2 of blood on the ground seemed to indicate that at least one of the bears had got a piece of lead in it somewhere. Not far beyond where Harv and Rube started the bears is the mouth of a deep ravine, and in the rocks of the ravine is a big cave. The bears were trailed to the cave. The reports of the guns had brought the rest of the party to the top of the knoll, and they spread out and stationed themselves at various points along the ravine. The only dog with the hunters was Ed Axtell's Juno, said to be the very best bear dog in all that country. The bears is in that cave, said Ed, and nothing'll fetch 'em out but Juno. So Ed put Sid Moe at a point opposite the mouth of the cave, because Sid had the name of being a shot that nothing could get away from. Then he sent Juno into the cave to rout the bears out. The dog hadn't been in the cave more than 10 seconds before bears began to tumble out of the hole like bees out of a hive. They made a great snorting and growling and snapping of jaws. Moe jumped behind a rock, peeking out, he hollered. Great Ginger, look at him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ginger, see him go. Then Sid happened to think that he had a gun, and he jumped out from behind the rock and began firing. The bears had all come out. The dog Juno came out right on their heels. He came out just as Sid was firing and got 3 bullets in him before he had time to die. The bear hunt was suspended for a minute while Ed Axtell licked Sid Moe. Then Sid dropped out of the ranks and went home. The party moved on, trying to console Ed for the loss of his dog while they moved. They hadn't gone far when they heard the crack of rifles up toward the head of the ravine. The hunters made a rush in that direction and met Ed Rupp and Dan Nuss, 2 bear hunters from Collinsville, where bears had been carrying off sheep in droves, they said. How many did you kill, asked Ed Rupp, referring to the fusillade they had heard. They were surprised to hear that nothing had been killed but 1 dog. From the flock that went by us just now, said Rupp, we thought maybe you must have bagged a lot. There were 5 of them, big ones. I only seen 3, said Dan Nuss. I killed one of them, I know. The hunters then fell to consulting as to what was the best course to pursue, when loud cries were heard down in the valley to the right of the ravine. The men made all haste in that direction. They found Chris Walsh and Joe Schuler, two more venturesome bear hunters. They were in the fork of a big chestnut tree, yelling like Indians. When they saw the big hunting party advancing, they yelled, "Get your guns ready. The woods is swarming with bear. There's one right at the foot of this tree now. He's got us treed. Ding him." Sure enough, there was a big bear at the foot of the tree, but he was dead. He was evidently one of the bears that had run the gauntlet at the ravine. Chris and Joe came down out of the tree. "Ding 'em," said Joe. "They came down off the hill yonder like a hurricane and surrounded us. We climbed up the tree quicker than you could believe. I counted 11 big ones beside the one that stayed here at the foot of the tree and kicked the bucket. The whole 11 is out in the brush yonder somewhere, and I don't know how many more of them." The big hunting party scoured the woods in all directions, they said, but couldn't find hide nor hair of any of the drove. "Where all of them 25 bear could have got to," says Ed Axtell, "is a caution to miracles. No one knows who fired the shot that killed the one bear, but of the 12 men who fired a gun during the excitement, each one declares that there is no doubt in the world but that it was his bullet that made the fatal hole in it. But that doesn't seem so much of a mystery to folks in general, as does the utter disappearance of the 25 other big bears, and that the way George Garrison is being cross-questioned about his count of the procession of bears up South Creek is worrying him amazingly." This story came from the great state of New York, being reported in the New York Sun of October 21st, 1894. Beginning next Monday, April 15th, we'll be going to a new uploading schedule. We'll be uploading on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.